A human approach to AI and automation. Hi there, I'm Lish, right there, and I currently lead the Global Revenue Enablement team at Algolia. We are a search as a service platform that specializes in understanding users' intent through web, app, and voice, and we provide tools to business users and developers to create a frictionless search and discovery experience. A lot of this is powered by artificial intelligence. Ahead of building the enablement function at Algolia, I was formerly the Director of Sales Operations for iHeartMedia's local market groups. There, I had amazing opportunities to solve problems using technology like digital robotics to programmatically remove human error from order entry at scale for over 850 radio stations. So it's safe to say today, I am thrilled that I get to share some thoughts around AI and automation. It's a space that I'm very passionate about, and give you guys a few ideas and tactics that you can leverage in the enablement space. So I'm going to hop right in. I'm going to state the obvious: the world has changed. 74% of companies are shifting to remote first per review42.com. And there's a 46% expected growth of enablement teams in the next 12 months, according to Topo's blog. And with that said, I think it's very safe to say that companies are investing in a lot of technology to make sure that we stay connected and productive. And they're using AI and automation to do so. So what is artificial intelligence? It's really fun because you can talk to a lot of different people and it means a lot of different things. If I talk to my parents, they probably think the Terminator. And if I talk to anyone that's been watching Netflix recently, which is basically everyone, they've been watching The Social Dilemma and they think that AI is controlling us. But for a sales ops or sales enablement professional, they think that it means, awesome, we get to do all of the things, we get all of this analytics and data to make ourselves better at our jobs and to help our reps be more productive. And some reps, when I speak to them, they're like, great, I just get to push this button and lay right back. So it's quite a buzzword. It can mean a lot of different things. So I'm going to demystify it a little bit and just boil it down to the fact that we're basically using it to make computers perform human tasks. And if we double click into that, I'm going to give a couple of ideas of how it's done. So artificial intelligence involves machine learning, so things like deep learning, predictive analytics, and something that might be more familiar for you in this space would be Netflix recommendation engine. Based upon what you browse, what you search for, what you watch, what people like you watch, you'll be recommended movies or TV shows. Another example of AI is speech and text. So things like natural language understanding, natural language processing, natural language generation. And a really good example of this is Amazon's Alexa or Apple's Siri. And the last example I'm going to talk about today is vision. And that is computer vision and image recognition. A really good example of this is autonomous driving cars or vehicles. And there's lots of other spaces under AI. It's a big umbrella of things. So there are things like robotics and rule-based AI, decision trees, etc. So when I was looking at creating this presentation and where to drill into, I realized, man, there is so much AI technology in the sales ops and sales enablement space to make a more productive environment for our reps. And this is just a few of the logos that can help us do it. So why does human intervention matter when we have all of this amazing technology? When I was building this presentation, I could really boil it down to just one word. And that one word was context. In today's tooling in the enablement space, there are a few things that I can absolutely confirm. And some of these are probably great ideas for product roadmaps for some of these companies that use AI. They don't know who our competitors are yet. So when I bought a tool in the space, I had to tell it what our competitors were. And it doesn't know what deals are winning and specifically why, because we all have so many different ways of selling and what good can look like. There's so many different styles out there. There's so many different messages and ways to resonate with a buyer and a consumer. And the very last thing is that AI doesn't know the ever-changing mandates and company priorities. And that needs a human to provide that context and to use these tools in that way. So today I'm going to cover a couple of examples of how I've been applying the human approach to some of the AI technology out there, and hopefully give you guys some great ideas to walk away with. So the first case study I'm going to go into is the situation where we had a problem where knowledge of best practices was siloed. We have two teams, they're globally spread apart. Half of them are in EMEA, half of them are in the US. And we needed to create an environment where we could foster coaching and upskilling our reps. And we needed to also understand that when we were doing that, we were actually impacting the customer and the prospect interactions. So there was the issue of, yes, we could just record our calls in Zoom or WebEx or whatever tool that you're using in the space and spend hours watching this and trying to understand, what was happening. But the reality is we needed a faster way to do this so that we could, help faster. So we looked to conversational intelligence software, and there's a few in the space. There's Chorus, there's Gong, and what these technologies do is they understand your rep's voice versus a prospect or a customer's voice, and then they're able to transcribe the entire conversation, and you're able to give the tool context by adding trackers around competitor names, specific value messaging, product and features, you name it. You can literally add any tracker you want in the world, and it will add that tracker into being searchable across all of the calls that it's recording. So getting started, there are so many ways to build a wonderful business case of why to use this kind of technology. And so I'm just going to go through a couple of different departments and how I was able to provide a way for this tool to be leveraged by them. The first one is obviously our reps, our AEs, our SDRs, our CSMs. We shared this tool to them as a productivity tool. It's their note taker. It connects to our CRM, it updates next steps on deals. And we use it also to obviously share best practices, that siloed knowledge that we were trying so hard to capture, and use it as a positive reinforcement tool. When we saw things that were really good, we shared it with the world. The number one thing that was important with getting started with this tool was not to use it as a policing tool, as an aha gotcha. That was really, really important. The next piece was managers, getting managers on board. Sharing valuable insights with leadership was the best way to sell this tool internally to them and get them adopted. When you're able to come out with, hey, you wouldn't believe what I've learned from watching 90 calls in Chorus over the last 90 days. They were definitely ears perked up, we're listening. And so they were able to get on board. They started wanting to get their own insights. And so that was a really easy way to get them adopted and into the tool. So then there's product. Product was able to get instant feedback loops from prospects, and customers. So this was really helpful for them to identify where potential gaps were, and also how they could change their roadmap as a result. Marketing was able to garner top competitors being mentioned by prospects, features that were getting mentioned the most in our calls, and also insight into if the messaging they're providing is actually resonating with the consumer. And then for our executive leadership, we were able to bring them up to speed faster and provide context to deals that they would be joining on the next call as an executive sponsor. So they would listen to the calls that we'd had beforehand so that they weren't having to make the customer repeat themselves as they were joining the call. And the very last one is engineering. Engineering was able to get a little bit more conviction around what they're building and why, because they're able to hear from the prospects and the customers the problem that they're solving for them. So the next stage after you've got everyone on board, everyone rallying around the tool, is to build impactful programs. And there's a few ways to do that. Team meetings, training sessions, coaching programs, and onboarding are just a couple. So I'm going to share a couple of ideas in here. So within team meetings, so we would join the role meetings in the team huddles, and we would do objection handling scenarios. So we would take a clip of a prospect asking a question, we'd pause the video, and then we would have a round table of answers from each rep with how they would have answered it. And it's really, really insightful to see how they respond, and then you can play what actually happened. The other thing we'd do is we'd share wow moments. So wow moments, we would play the moment, and then we would ask the reps, what did you like? What would you do differently? For our larger training sessions, we would leverage clips from calls and gamify them. So recently we've been practicing our methodology. We were going over what really makes a champion, and we would play this game called Is This a Champion? And what that looked like is we'd play a clip of a prospect or a customer, and we would poll the team. Is this a champion? Yes or no? And then we would question each answer, like team's answers, with what their reasoning was. So if they were team yes, then that was, what were the characteristics that you saw to make you think that way, and vice versa for the opposing team. Another way we would do this is what's the solution? So we would find a clip from Chorus or from Gong and play a clip of the prospect's pains. And then we would break the reps into small groups, and we would get them to practice how they would demo and pitch as a result of that. So my favorite story to date is the coaching programs that we've been able to come up with. We have leveraged the insights that we can see in our CRM. So in this specific scenario, we were looking at conversion by stage and realizing that we had a lot of work to do at top of the funnel. And so as you're doing a root analysis of that problem, what's causing that conversion to be so low is we were able to look in the conversational intelligence tool at calls that were happening at that stage and come up with a few theories as to why. And then we would partner with our sales leadership team, and we came up with 5 things that we were able to boil it down to of things that we wanted to improve, and we co-built a score rubric for those 5 things. Then the next step was to agree on how many scorecards they would fill out every single week for the entire quarter. And then we've been watching and tracking those metrics for improvement. There has been a really great report, the State of Conversational Intelligence report, and in this report it shares that when coaching happens at the top end of the funnel on those early stage deals, that there can be a 30% improvement on your win rate. My last one that I want to share is onboarding playlists. Now, onboarding playlists are great. We used to have to shadow in real life, and the problem with shadowing in real life is you don't know if it's going to be the best call for them to shadow. So conversational intelligence tool that takes that guesswork away. We're able to build the best of the best by deal stages and embed those into our onboarding program. And we're also able to build best practices by revenue roles and embed those into everyone's onboarding program. The most important thing when you're rolling out anything is to create a culture around it. One of the ways that we did that at Algolia was we created a Slack channel, and we called it the Sales Hotline Bling, and it's where we share wow moments every week and every day, in some cases, of best practices that we see on the front lines from watching Chorus calls. And we're currently gearing up for our first ever virtual kickoff, and we're planning on doing an Al Golden Globe Award ceremony where we will have wow moments that are nominated in different categories, and obviously we'll have a big vote of who has won those nominations. I think it's safe to say that when you have a rep asking for their weight in call wow moments, that we have sufficiently created a culture for it. So all of that human context and adoption is what makes this a powerful tool, and enablement is a link to driving this. So AI is responsible for powering the most amazing personalized experiences. So there's the Netflix recommendation engines, our playlists on Spotify, Amazon's, always prescribing the best things that we want to buy as a result of what we've bought before. But on the flip side, there are automated experiences that we don't always love. It's happened to all of us. Automation at scale means potentially sacrificing personalization. So here's an example of my spam inbox from a few days ago, and unfortunately I have been the victim of unpersonalized messages. So let's talk about applying a human approach to automation. Case study 2. So unfortunately, as you can see, spray and pray sadly exists more than we would like to admit. And the result is, and the solution is, we have to use our humanity to remind people that there's a real life human that responds to that inbox. And we have to do empathy training, and we have to be curious, and we have to create frameworks that can help do that. And I always say to our reps, if content is king, context is God. There's a reason why they're not on the end of a marketing automation tool or on the marketing team sending out that blast to everyone. There's a reason why they have this amazing role where they get to create context for other humans. So we use the 5-5-5 framework. And what that is 5 minutes of research, 5 key insights that they find as a result of that 5 minutes of research, and then they spend 5 minutes for the email. And each email and the cadence that they're building should only be focused on one of those insights. So when they're actually writing an email, we try to use the 10-80-10 rule. So it's 10% personalization at the top. They can use that message that we get from marketing, and 10% of personalization at the bottom. But the truth is that personalization works. And this is a phenomenal graph from a dear friend, Pete Zangi. He wrote a book called Founding Sales. And in this graph, it really shows this. We have one and done, where there's absolutely no personalization done at all. There's no personalization in a drip, to light auto personalization, heavy auto personalization, and then actual human personalization where we're providing that context. And you can see that the total results, it doesn't even compare. So people learn through emotion, and people buy through emotion, and that requires us to be human. And that is why I have a very strong conviction around AI and automation, and it requiring that human intervention to provide context. So now I guess I will open it up to all of your wonderful questions, and thank you so much for listening to this part of the presentation.
You're welcome. So you have a question. Do you have any suggestions on where to start when choosing an AI enablement solution at an early stage startup in particular? Really good question. The first place I go to do any kind of tech review is I look on g2crowd.com. It's kind of like the Yelp of all software tools. And you'll always be able to find some great insights from customers that are actually using it. So that would be step one, but it really depends on what you're trying to solve, depending on what enablement solution you need to buy, because there's a very, very wide space. For me, when I came into Algolia and I was looking at the tech stack that we needed, the very first thing I linked to is conversational intelligence, because it's a way for you to capture all of the information and the best practices that are happening on the front lines first. And then that will derive so many other programs for you, give you a bit of a North Star of what's happening. And because it's captured, you're not restricted to having to shadow a bunch of people, which is very, very time consuming, and you can do it on your own terms and on your own time. All right, lots more questions. Can you share the 10-80-10 rule again? Yeah, so how it works is the 10% at the top is personalized. That's where they're going to put those insights from that 5-5-5 framework to create that human connection, build that rapport, and make it sound like it's not just a spammed at mass email. And then the 80% is where we'll use that like messaging that's been pre-built by product marketing. And then the final piece at the end is the personalized, another like line of personalization. So we're not just doing a call to action that's a result of asking for their time, but like we're also like making sure the end message is personalized to that specific person. Yeah, the 5-5-5 framework is phenomenal. It's just a really simple framework to get people engaged with, hey, like when you're going against, telling everyone, hey, like your emails need to be personalized, they start to think that like, wow, this is going to be like so time consuming. But when you actually get down to the nuts and bolts of it, of like how to do personalization at scale, like using LinkedIn Sales Navigator to garner insights and what they can look for, it actually doesn't take too long. It's just getting into the practice of doing it. So 5-5-5 has been a phenomenal framework for us to leverage there. All right. Sorry, there's so many questions popping up in here, which is wonderful. I want to make sure there was like one question, I think, during the session. How are you using AI for training delivery in terms of course recommendations, for example? So when we do start noticing like trends and themes, like from the scorecarding exercise that we did, so we did a scorecard for first call excellence. So we were focusing on 5 things, like some of them, for example, were, are they creating, like setting up an agenda, and are they speaking to the agenda at the start of the call? And are they setting like strong next steps, and are they asking open-ended questions? When you start noticing trends from that data, from that scorecard that the managers are scoring these calls on, you can start to notice themes. So, we noticed that in our South EMEA team, there were more people that weren't setting next steps. So that then allowed us to go into that specific team and be like, hey, we've got to work on this. And we aligned with their manager on how we were going to train for that specific part. So the scorecarding part can really help for that. In general, for like overall themes, it does take a little bit of time to notice trends, and you have to build trackers to identify and understand like what you're looking at. So again, I leveraged a lot of CRM insights. So looking at like conversion by stage and understanding, okay, like there's where I need to focus. So I'll go and listen to those calls there and see if I'm noticing any ongoing themes. Going over the 5-5-5 framework again. So the 5-5-5 is to garner five insights, spending 5 minutes, and then, sorry, 5 insights, 5 minutes, and the final 5, for whatever reason, I'm having a complete brain dump. Let me just pull it up. One second. And if I can share my screen. Oh, and 5 minutes to write the email. Yeah, thank you guys. Gemstones. All right. Do you use other AI to complement your meeting intelligence tool? Yes, we do. Thankfully, I work at a really cool company that understands users' intent. And so we do leverage internally our own tool. So I can tell what people are searching for, what they're finding no results on. So I use that a lot to understand like what my reps need. Unfortunately, it does require dev work to build that out and have it connected to the tools that you're using in enablement space. But that's another part of AI that I use to help complement. There are other tools out there as well. Obviously, there's like business insight tools that can overlay your CRM. There is like tools like for content management systems that you could overlay as well, like the high spots of the world where you're seeing again like what people are looking for, what they're needing, that can complement your intelligence meeting tool. Would you recommend going to further reading / research on this? Where do you recommend? It's funny, your name is Adam Grant, and maybe you're the same Adam Grant that he's a phenomenal author. I love reading things like Dan Pink, To Sell as Human. I read a phenomenal blog post by Adam Grant years ago that referenced Dan Pink, To Sell as Human. So there's some really great content out there. One of my favorite books that I'm reading right now is How People Learn. And that has completely changed my mind on how I can garner more adoption through enablement, through really understanding the effective context model. So if you're a reading buff like me, would strongly recommend there. But To Sell as Human by Dan Pink, that's going to make you understand a lot more about humanity and how we can apply it in sales. Could you share the study again that proves personalization drives retention? So it's called Founding Sales. It's by Peter Kazanji. You can actually find it online. He has foundingsales.com, I believe, is the website. And it has in chapter 5 that amazing graph that shows personalization drives retention, drives response rates. Regarding personalization, so at Michael, regarding personalization, the title and the email is certainly the most important element. You have Sales Navigator that gives you so much insight. Putting those elements at the beginning of your email, 10% will also, yeah, I couldn't agree more with you, Tevin. Another way to create personalization, I don't know if you guys use this a lot, it's pretty old school, but TweetDeck is an amazing tool. It allows you, if you have a very customer facing problem solving solution, I go to TweetDeck. And so, for example, my company solves search problems. And usually when people can't find what they're looking for, they get frustrated at the brand. So finding like a reason to reach out and personalizing it specifically to that company and that brand can really help move the needle too. So it's a good memory. I can never recite the chapter. I was researching it the other night, and I had a feeling someone was going to ask this question, so I'm glad I could remember that. Yeah, I think I have answered everyone's questions. I don't know if anyone has any other ones. Perfect. Thanks so much for having me. It was a pleasure to share what we've been doing. And yeah, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn or on the SEC Slack community. I'm more than welcome to chat about it more.